Hello, I'm Nick Crawley, and in this little video I'm going to give an introduction to Paul's letter, which we call 1 Timothy. This was written right at the end of his life, I believe, after his appeal to Caesar had been both heard and dismissed. And Paul then returns to, first of all, goes south to Crete, and then leaving Titus in Crete, he goes up into Macedonia and then sends Timothy to Ephesus, where he has heard reports of pandemonium breaking out in the church. Let me read this introduction. As I urged you when I went into Macedonia, stay on in Ephesus, so that you may command certain men not to teach false doctrines, nor any longer, nor to devote themselves to myths and endless genealogies. It seems that some people had somehow assumed the teaching ministry at Ephesus, and they weren't teachers at all, and consequently they were mishandling the Old Testament scriptures. They were teaching very strange things and actually making a lot of it up. It seems like there was real confusion going on. And as a result of this, a number of things were happening. First of all, the men were arguing. Secondly, the women, certainly some women, were flaunting their wealth and social status and abusing their teaching ministry. And this was causing severe difficulties in the church, both what the men and the women were doing. And thirdly, there were a whole number of pastoral issues that came out of this as a result. First of all, the church's care of the widows was being abused. Some people were taking advantage of the social care that the church was providing. There were accusations that the elders were mishandling money, and then thirdly, a rather strange thing, and that was that the Christian slaves seemed to have been taking advantage of their Christian masters. Now, it's fascinating to watch the way Paul handles all these things. First of all, he excommunicates the two leading false teachers, Hymenaeus and Alexander, and he does this for blasphemy. We don't know exactly what they were saying, but it must have been extremely serious. That's the first thing. Secondly, he instructs both the men and the women on how to worship properly. Thirdly, he gives a thorough description on the godly characteristics that are needed on those who oversee and those who serve the church community. And then he addresses the issue of the widows and the abuse of the care system, the elders and the handling of money, and the issue with the slaves. And finally, he ends with by addressing an issue which is the root of all of this, and that was the pernicious love of wealth and money. And Paul writes correcting this and warns the church through Timothy, through his letter to Timothy, to avoid this really dangerous motivation. The verse that I'd like to finish with is a verse which is very close to my heart as a teacher, and that is Paul's exposition here. Chapter 4, until I come, devote yourself to the public reading of Scripture, to preaching and to teaching. And then he says this, watch your life and doctrine closely, persevere in them, because if you do, you will save both yourself and those who hear you.